Hello, welcome to our world news. The U.S. Director of Intelligence says the tempo of fighting in Ukraine is likely to reduce over the winter months. Avril Haines added that since Russian forces withdrew from the west of the Kherson area, most of the conflict is now in the east of the country, while many millions of Ukrainians continue to be affected by power cuts. Fears are now growing for those without proper shelter. Our correspondent Jessica Parker sent this report from the village of Kalinivka, just west of Kiev, which was occupied by Russian forces at the start of the war. Pain of hearing your home is destroyed inner still feels it months on. Music. Earlier this year, fires raged across this area. Russia's brief and failed advance left scenes of devastation. Now clues from that time lie hidden. Ina's makeshift home is built where her old one used to be. Kitchen is freezing and damp. Icy water drips from the roof. Her swollen hands hurt from the cold, but she looks far beyond her own worries. I want us to win as soon as possible, so that there is peace and tranquility, so that all soldiers return home alive and well. For inner help is on the way this winter. She's the first in her village to get a prefab home, but others will have to wait. Applause. Including Nadia. In this one room she cooks and sleeps in a bed she's sharing with her son and his girlfriend Sophia. Plastic sheet stops the floor getting wet when they wash. They even go to the toilet in here if it's too cold outside. The 19-year-old Sophia, it's suffocating. I'm very anxious. I can't wash or go to the bathroom alone. I hate to do that in front of everyone. I just want some personal space as the cold bites. Russian strikes mean power cuts too. It's an exhausting existence for Nadir as she sits on the steps of her former now wrecked home. It's hard for everyone. I want my house. I want to live in peace, and for my son and his girlfriend to have a place to live, because now they have no life. It's not life. Oh God. 63 years old, she walks through the rooms and ruins the shadows of the past all around. So many have been left haunted, now hunted by the winter too. Jessica Parker, BBC News. Well, Jessica is in Kiev for us now. Jessica, we've been reporting, as you are no doubt aware, that the U.S. Director of Intelligence is saying that the tempo of fighting will decrease over the winter months. What do you interpret from that? Yeah, I mean, I think that's not a surprise. So as you say, a senior, very senior U.S. official Avril Haines, speaking at a defense forum in California, and I think she is stating publicly what many people have probably been observing, although it's always difficult to know exactly what is going on the battlefield. But what she was saying overnight is that following the Russian withdrawal from the city of her son, the fighting has slowed down. The fiercest battles seem to be playing out in southeastern Ukraine, in Donetsk, particularly around the town of Bakhmut, which the Russians, according to British intelligence, may be trying to capture as a potential launch pad to go to other places in the area. But she also said that despite the repeated attacks by Russia on Ukrainian infrastructure, she hasn't observed a decline in Ukraine's will to resist a Russian attacks following the invasion in February. And she also spoke as well about the possibility that both sides, after a slowdown in fighting this winter, which is what they currently expect to happen, you could see both sides trying to launch some sort of counteroffensive in spring. But she suggested actually she thought Russia may not be in a good position or prepared to do that. Of course, we're saying AU.S, one of the main backers of Ukraine in terms of financial aid, in terms of weapons as well. And on the subject of support from the West, the price cap that at $60 a barrel, that Ukraine's leader Zelensky says is not sufficient. Yeah, so actually quite a strong statement overnight. I think we'd had a hint yesterday that maybe the president's office wasn't overly impressed with this 60 price cap, but actually President Zelensky saying overnight that it was essentially weak. What we've heard from the Ukrainians is they'd rather see a 30 price cap. Clearly that's not something that the West got anywhere near the G7 and the European Union. But it isn't just President Zelensky who is frustrated by the limit that was set in the end. We know as well countries like Poland, Baltic states. I've been just listening to an interview with the Estonian Foreign Affairs Minister Ernst Law. They really want to keep pushing actually to try and bring that cap further down in order to, and this is the point, we're told, to try and eat into the Kremlin's coffers the money they then use to finance the war in Ukraine. But the kind of counter argument is that you don't want to push it so far down that you endanger security of supply for countries who might really need it. Okay, and meanwhile, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights is on a 4-day visit to Ukraine. Yeah, Volker Turk is here, a recent appointment to that position back in September. We haven't had lots of details about his visit, but as you say, we know that he's coming here for 4 days. He's going to meet a range of people during that time, we're told, officials, but also as well the families of prisoners of war. Jessica, meanwhile, of course, although we talk about the front line of the war being in the east for Ukrainian people, and in terms of their suffering, the power cuts are very meaningful. Yeah, and we've heard this morning that emergency power cuts continue in several areas of Ukraine today. Now, the hope had been that following the most recent Russian missile attacks on the energy infrastructure, which was the Wednesday before last, they could do enough repairs to gradually move to planned outages. What do we mean by planned outages? Well, we mean that you would get some sort of schedule, which will say your power will be off from, say, 6 a.m. to midday, but what we're seeing still in quite a lot of areas, including here in the capital Kyiv, is that they haven't been able to get to that point. So emergency outages continue. That means the power can go off quite unexpectedly. Obviously, that's extremely difficult for families if they're waking up to weather like this. It's very cold, but very difficult for businesses to operate as well if they don't exactly know when they're going to get power. But I have to say, when you speak to people, there is a lot of resilience, a lot of people saying they are trying to get prepared for this winter, whether it's stocking up on water, whether it's buying generators. And so I think going forward, there will continually be a focus on trying for individual families to get prepared, but also the government has been pushing this idea of refuges, so-called points of invincibility, where people could go in really dire situations when they just need some power, some fresh water, or indeed to get warm.